NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play.
What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing you the latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. All right, let's go. We've got a lot to discuss in this episode, a lot to talk about. There's been a lot going on in the world of the Nets, so let's dive right in. I apologize for the long little hiatus. It's been like a couple weeks since my last NetsBoy episode. A lot has happened and transpired in the last 2 weeks. NetsBoy's always busy, but also I was having technical difficulties with my computer, of course, and then the birth of my nephew, which was an awesome thing that happened. Nets nephew? I don't know if that really works. And I don't think he'll be ever really seen on NetsBoy. We'll see what his parents say. That'd be pretty cute, though. So that happened in the last couple of weeks. Little fun little tidbit. His name is Carter. And yes, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, it is true. He is named after NetsBoy's all-time favorite basketball player, and also happens to be my brother's favorite basketball player, Vince Carter. So yeah, that's just a little fun little thing. So Nets nephew is named after Vince Carter. How great is that? So that happened the last couple weeks. So things were a little, whirlwind of things and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I don't think anyone really cares that much about what goes on in NetsBoy's personal life. But those were the reasons why NetsBoy has not posted a video recently. And there's a lot to talk about. Like I said, a lot to discuss. We've got to talk about this COVID situation. We got to talk about this new look Nets with all the young guys. And of course, we got to talk about the big news about the return of Kyrie Irving as a part-time player and all this stuff. But once again, all this is kind of a little bit of a relevant point because the last 2 games for the Nets have been postponed because they simply just can't get enough players because COVID is running rampant, not only through the Brooklyn Nets, but apparently through society again, as we are in a terrible, terrible second or third or fourth wave, whatever you want to call it, but really bad situation again. But, just when you're getting out of this, it pulls you back in, right? But anyway, so we got a lot to talk about. So let's dive right in and focus. So the first thing we want to talk about is what we saw from this little fun, little new look Nets team, in particular the 76ers game, and the game before that when they beat the Pistons. And unfortunately, of course, they fell, the Raptors. They beat the Pistons as well before that. But the Raptors game and the 76ers game and the Magic game. Those 3 games in which the Nets did not have James Harden, they did not have LaMarcus Aldridge, they did not have Andre Bembry, they did not have James Johnson, they didn't have a whole bunch of players, they didn't have Paul Millsap, thank goodness. Whole bunch of players they didn't have. They just had Kevin Durant, Patty Mills, Blake Griffin, and a bunch of young guys. And let me just say this. The win against the Raptors was awesome, and more impressively, the win against the 76ers was incredible. I mean, it's awesome to see the young guys playing well. Kessler Edwards, right? David Duke Jr., right? Day'Ron Sharpe, and obviously Cam Thomas, right? And then, of course, we know the Nets went out there and they got Lanston Galloway, signed him to a struggling contract. What's it called? Whatever, when your roster's depleted. Hardship. There it is. A struggling contract. No, a hardship contract, and then James Ennis they got, and then they got somebody else I don't fully remember. Like I said, I'm all over the place. So the Nets brought in some of these players giving a chance, but really, it's been the players that the Nets have had on their team the whole time. They're just getting their opportunity. Day'Ron Sharpe, Cam Thomas, Kessler Edwards, and David Duke Jr. Those 3 young guys have stepped up in a way that's just awesome. And the win against the Raptors was fantastic. And even better than that, the win against the 76ers was great. But also, you know what? I kind of want to group Nicholas Claxton in that category. Granted, this is Nicholas Claxton's 3rd year in the league. He's still a young guy. He's 21 years old. He still kind of fits into that young core. And to me, that's the biggest takeaway from all this. It's just how exciting it is to watch these guys play and play hard. Like, I don't want to try to disrespect the rest of the Nets players, but there wasn't one situation in which you didn't see one of those young guys play at maximum effort. And that has always been my critique of this Nets team, is that they seem like just don't care. that they just want to flip a switch and start pouring it on. But these young guys come out. They're hungry. They want to prove themselves. They play 110% every possession. And that's why they were able to beat the Raptors. That's why they were able to beat the 76ers. That's why they didn't give up against the Magic, despite not even having Kevin Durant, because he was out with health and safety protocols as well. I mean, I love it. I love it. It makes me feel good about being a Nets fan because it makes you realize, wow, this team really just isn't just the stars. Granted, let's not get carried away here. Without Kevin Durant and James Harden and now apparently Kyrie Irving coming back, this team's not winning a championship and this team wouldn't even be sniffing the playoffs without those three guys. But it's just a fun team to see, and I've really loved what I saw from these young guys. I can't even talk badly about any of them. I mean, Kessler Edwards looks like a legit 3-and-D player, and those players are really, really important. And he just makes a lot of energy plays. I think Kessler Edwards should stay in the rotation, to be honest. I don't know exactly who he's replacing in the rotation, especially now when everybody gets healthy out of COVID and this and that with Kyrie Irving possibly jumping in. But he definitely has earned it. David Duke Jr., I mean, you see the potential. He's a very skilled defensive player. He's a solid slasher. He's just too inconsistent with his three-point shot, but he's a work in progress. He was an undrafted player, so, give him some time. And I've talked about this before. I seen David Duke Jr. play several times in college because he went to Providence, and that's a Big East school, and we all know I follow Big East basketball, being a Seton Hall alum. And I got to see David Duke Jr. play a lot. And I think he's got a spot in the NBA at some point. I don't know if he'll be with the Nets, but I think he's got that kind of defensive mentality that a lot of people like. And all he needs to do is work on his three-point shot and become a more consistent three-point shooter, and he'll be in this league. But I loved it. And Daron Sharp, he's the big the Nets are going to need in the future. Whenever LaMarcus Aldridge does, finally retire and leave the Nets, maybe after the end of the season, maybe he might go one more year, we don't know. I think Daron Sharp is the perfect replacement for him. He's a very good rebounder. He's a solid defensive player. Doesn't really have much of an offensive game, but he's just rebounding. I think him and Claxton are a great future 1-2 punch as your starter and backup. I think that I could see in the near future, like in 2 years from now, Claxton starting and Sharp coming off the bench or the other way around, doesn't really matter, and that they're almost splitting the minutes evenly. Maybe one's getting like 26 minutes and the other one's getting like 22 minutes or something like that. But look, it was just fun to watch. Cam Thomas doing his thing. Told you this guy was going to be great, and it's been fun to watch. So that's what I've taken away from those first two games. But now all this COVID stuff's happening. Now Durant's out. Now the entire team's out. So they had to postpone the game against the Nuggets and the game against the Wizards. Hopefully everyone can get healthy and hopefully the Nets will be able to play by Thursday against the Trailblazers in Portland, which was supposed to also be an amazing or extremely important day because that was the expected return of Mr. Kyrie Irving. Now, let's spend the rest of this episode really talking about that because that's probably what most people want to hear me talk about since that's kind of still the exciting story, even though I personally like the young Nets playing well. So after going the first 30-ish games of saying, we don't want Kyrie Irving, if you're not going to be with us full-time, do your thing until you get vaccinated and so on and so forth. Then all of a sudden, COVID hits again, and all these players are dropping like flies, and players are getting hurt. Joe Harris is out, this and that. Bruce Brown dealing with this injury, everything like that. Everyone's starting to get hurt. Kevin Durant has to play 43 minutes a game, almost, and Steve Nash says, "Holy crap, we can't keep doing this to Kevin Durant. We got to think long term. We got to think about what's best for this team." So he goes to Sean Marks and says, we need to figure out a way to spell Kevin Durant some minutes, give him some more rest, give him an opportunity to not have to play 38 minutes, 39 minutes a game. Let's get him down to 34. Let's give him an opportunity to rest on back-to-back games where we don't have to throw in the towel and lose the game automatically. And so Sean Marks went to Joe Tsai, and they talked it over, and they said, you know what? Let's just bite the bullet at this point. Let's bring back Kyrie. Let's bring him back on a part-time basis. At least half the games we'll be able to give Kevin Durant some breathers, maybe play only 32 minutes because Kyrie will be in, he'll be refreshed. Maybe we can rest Durant on back-to-backs now on the road because we can have Kyrie who can provide that offense and score and help carry the team. Let's just do it. Why not? We need the help. It's about the long-term picture. And let me say this. I completely understand why the Nets are doing this. And I think most people understand why the Nets are doing this, right? Because it's not about principle at this matter. You know, a lot of people are upset because they're like, it's supposed to be about principle. He didn't want to get vaccinated. He didn't want to play. He didn't want to follow the rules. So to hell with him because, you know, he's Kyrie Irving. Yet no one's saying that about, you know, Bradley Beal or any of the other unvaccinated players because they're not in a state that requires a mandate to be vaccinated. But no one has said anything else about that because, you know, they're not Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is the lightning rod. So everyone's reaction is, oh, the Nets are caving to the Kyrie Irving. Kevin Durant is controlling the team. Can you believe this? And this and that. It's just classic Nets just, you know, kissing the feet of those two. It's such a disappointment. They have poor management. Sean Marks, Joe Tsai, you have no spine. Shut the hell up. That's not what it's about, okay? It's about the long-term success of your team. I'm almost certain Kevin Durant did not go to Steve Nash and said, I can't play all these minutes. I can't be carrying this team night in, night out. If you want us to win, we need Kyrie back. Maybe it was a conversation that Steve Nash brought up to Kevin Durant and said, hey, what do you think about bringing back Kyrie to reduce the load on you? But I guarantee you, Kevin Durant did not go to Steve Nash and Sean Marks and said, I need Kyrie because I can't carry this team. Kevin Durant has been carrying this team all year. And you want to know something? He's enjoyed it. You see the look on his face when the Nets beat the 76ers and beat the Raptors? He said this was some of the most fun he's ever had with these young guys playing at a high level. He loves it. So don't tell me that those guys are controlling the team, that the poor management. No, it's smart management. Sometimes you got to make the decision that's in the best for your team or your business or your organization. And sometimes it's not the most fairest decision or a decision that everyone's going to be on board with. But the reality is, the goal of this Nets team is to win a championship. And having Kevin Durant beating the crap out of him now, here in December, late December, is not beneficial for them to win a championship. They're currently the 1 seed in the East, which is fantastic. But there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to maintain that if they continue to rest Durant or try to control his workload. It's about long-term success. So I'm completely understand the decision, and I support the decision. I think it makes tons of sense. Is it the fairest decision? No, I don't think it's fair. But you know what? Life ain't fair. And it's about the ultimate goal, which is to win a championship. As long as you do it ethically. Because, you know, then now everyone's going to be like, hey, what about people using steroids and cheating and this and that? You know, the Tom Brady crap and Barry Bonds and those people. I had to throw Tom Brady in there. I don't like Tom Brady. I've always been a Tom Brady hater. There's nothing to even really hate about the guy. The guy's unbelievably impressive. He just allegedly deflated a ball once or twice. I don't know. Or told someone to deflate a ball. But he's the GOAT. He's the greatest quarterback of all time, greatest football player of all time. I don't know that. But anyway, forget Tom Brady. I just like to stab at him every once in a while because, like, I like to do that. I like to poke the bear. But anyway, completely off topic. This is NetsBoy. We talk basketball, not football. It's the right decision. That is, in my opinion, with what I've seen. And you want to know why it's also the right decision? Because James Harden is a piece of crap. There you go. NetsBoy said it. What a surprise. How long was it going to take him before he bashed James Harden? It's all James Harden's fault. It really is. I don't want to hear anyone else saying that, like, oh, the Nets have no spine. No, the Nets' hand was forced by the inconsistency and inconsistent play of a so-called MVP player and top 5 player in the league, James Harden. That's the reality of it. If James Harden was able to play the way he's supposed to be playing, as he did last year, not even with the Rockets, as he played last year, the Nets would not be making this decision about Kyrie Irving. I know it. But they looked at the one game that they didn't have Kevin Durant play because they rested him on the back of the back. It was James Harden and the other guys, and the Nets lost, and it didn't even look competitive. And I think Steve Nash and Sean Marks took a step back and said, you know what? We can't win with just James Harden out there right now. We can't. James is a shell of himself. He's not the same player. He's not the player we traded almost our entire future for. We got to figure something else out. So, instead of everyone jumping on the anti-Kyrie, bashing Sean Marks and Steve Nash and Joe Tsai bandwagon, why don't we take a step back and say, why would the Nets need Kyrie Irving if they supposedly have 2 star players when one of them needs the rest? Because James Harden is a piece of crap. I told you all that this guy was going to be the downfall of the Nets. I said it in my episode. And now, my episode when they first made the trade last year, when I went on my long rant and tangent about how James Harden's going to be the demise of the Brooklyn Nets, I said it in that episode. And right now, we're seeing it unfold. And now we're seeing the Nets get to a point where they have to bring back Kyrie Irving, who's unvaccinated, who, by the way, is also in COVID protocol as we speak, which is very bad because he's unvaccinated. And so who knows when he's really going to be back? Will it be that Portland game? I don't think so, because he now needs to clear like 10 days of testing negative or something like that because he's not vaccinated. So it's James Harden's fault. There it is. James Harden's fault. NetsBoy blames him for the reason why the Nets' hand have been forced to bring back Kyrie Irving. Has nothing to do with Kevin Durant running the team or the Nets being spineless. They have to do what's best for the team and winning a championship, and this is what it is. But right now, like I said, Nets basketball doesn't exist because it's all been postponed because of COVID. So hopefully everyone can just get healthy and get back onto the court and we can pick back up the season. And hopefully this damn virus can stop destroying our lives because that's all it's been doing for the last 2 years. Whatever. So let's take a look at the next couple games, or the possible games, because who knows if they're going to be postponed, for the Nets. So we talked about the Portland game in hope as a possible first game for them to be back, or Kyrie to be back, or anyone to be back on December 23rd. I don't want to ever say any of these games are a win because I don't know who's playing. Like, if I know who's playing, I'd say that's a win, that's a lose. But I'm just going to say Portland is a team that's in disarray right now. Will Damian Lillard be traded? I don't know. They should be a lot better than their record, but we'll see what happens. Then on Christmas Day, a very fun matchup against the Lakers. A game that on paper at the beginning of the year, everyone was probably excited about, but considering all the COVID stuff with the Nets and the fact that the Lakers just simply aren't good for some reason, that game is just, I don't think anyone's going to care about it, but who knows. That's a game that's a toss-up, with once again for the same reasons. And then they got the Clippers on Monday, and then they play the 76ers again. All road, oh no, the 76ers is home. The next 3 games are road games, and then the last game is a home game. So if Kyrie is back, he won't be able to play in that 76ers game, but he'll be able to play in the other 3 games. Look, at this point, I just want to see this team get healthy, continue to grow. I want to see the young guys continue to take steps in the right direction. And I just want to see this team continue to be competitive. I can't harp on how many games they should win or lose until they're fully healthy. But I will say this, a fully healthy Nets team should win all 3 of those games against the Trailblazers, Lakers, and Clippers. Clippers are a good team, though, by the way. Really good team, and Paul George is playing out of his mind. Same thing with the 76ers after that. But I think this Nets team fully healthy is better, but we'll see what happens. All right, there you have it. Managed to cram all that in just around 20 minutes, which is pretty impressive for NetsBoy. Let me know what you guys think about everything, about this COVID situation, the Kyrie Irving news. If you agree with me that it is James Harden's fault that the Brooklyn Nets had to bring back Kyrie Irving. If you agree with me on that, let me know about what you think is going to happen moving forward with all this stuff. And until then, this is definitely going to be my last episode before Christmas. So everyone have a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays and stay safe. Wear your masks. To avoid direct contact with anyone that you know is sick. Try to be responsible. Wash your damn hands. Wash your hands. Even if you go number 1, wash your hands. That's a fact. I'm sorry, men. Wash your damn hands. And until the next NetsBoy episode, which hopefully will be in about a week or so, but might be around New Year's. We'll see what happens. Until then, this is NetsBoy signing off.
When